Two Chairs No Waiting, episode number 834, Opie's Hobo Friend. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each and every week by the folks over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Weavers has all kinds of cool new t-shirts. Go check them out. They got a Mayberry Sheriff's Office t-shirt. Go and check that one out. Turned out really good. Have a Colonel Harvey's Indian Elixir label t-shirt. It's a brand new version of a Colonel Harvey shirt. Check that one out. And you might want to check out some of Floyd's Barbershop soap. How can you do without it? You can get a mug and a brush and everything. Head over to Weaver's Department Store and check it out. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners like you. The executive producer of episode number 834 is Mike McGonigal. He's a patron over at Patreon. So thank you, Mike, and thank you for being here with me in Mayberry. It's always a lot of fun. Tonight we're going to be doing, as I said at the beginning, Opie's Hobo Friend. We're going to be going through it. We're going to do several things, but the first thing we're going to do is the trivia, because a lot of times when I give away the answers during the podcast, so I've started doing the trivia first. So we're going to go straight into the trivia portion of our podcast so that you'll know to listen as I talk to find out what the actual answer to the trivia is. By the way, I'm Allan Newsome. I don't think I even said that. The host here at Two Chairs No Waiting, and it's always fun to talk about the Andy Griffith Show and ask these trivia questions, because since I have to ask them, I don't have to know the answers. Yay. So we'll go over the questions at the beginning and then hit up the answers at the end, okay? So that way you've got the whole episode to try to make sure you got them right and see if you got them right as we go through. So let me play a little music here as we get started for our trivia music and pull up our trivia questions. Here we go. They're off of MeTV, by the way. Question number 1. We'll start off easy. Which familiar face plays the hobo? Was it Eddie Albert, Raymond Burr, or Buddy Ebsen? Okay, so write down your answer, and we'll come back to it at the end of the episode and see if you got it right. Question number 2. What does the stranger steal out of the cruiser, this Mayberry squad car? What does he steal? Andy's sidearm, a sandwich, or an apple pie? What does he steal out of the Mayberry patrol car? Number 3. What's the fellow's name? What's his name? Was it David Browne, Boxcar Johnny, or Leon Ray Livingston? What's his name? All right. What magic word, this is number 4, what magic word does the hobo use on the episode? Is it Kalamazoo, or Tuscarora, or Alabaster? What's the magic word he uses? Number 5. Andy gives the man work doing what? He gives him work doing what? Picking up trash, sweeping jail cells, or trimming hedges? All right. Number 6. According to Opie's new friend, what separates us from the apes? Critical thinking, discussion, or eating well? Separates us from the apes. Number 7. The man also has philosophies regarding the days of the week. Which day is the best according to him? Is it tomorrow, yesterday, or today? Which is the best day? Number 8. Opie gets brought in on what kind of charges? Was it theft, loitering, or playing hooky? Number 9. Opie's friend claims to have invented a new kind of fishing lure. What is it called? A flash dangle, a gollywoggle, or a hookamajig? What was the name of his jig? And the last one, number 10. The episode ends with Barney practicing what hobby? Karate, tarot, like a tarot cards, or magic? How does it end? All right, so I want to thank, these are all from MeTV, the daily quizzes. This one was actually from March the 4th of last year, by the way. So it's the March of 4th, the daily Andy Griffith quiz, Opie's Hobo Friends. So thank you very much to MeTV for these questions, and we will come back with the answers after the show. All right, so let me tell you some of the answers, because this is the reason I've given you the questions to start with, because I give away the answers during the show. Opie's Hobo Friend was the 40th episode of the Andy Griffith Show, filmed from the beginning of season 1 till now. And it was aired as the 38th episode. So it was the 6th episode of season 2. Its original air date was November the 13th, 1961. Its writer was Harvey Bullock, one of the great writers from the Andy Griffith Show. They're all great, but Harvey, I have a special spot for Harvey because I actually knew him. And the director was Bob Sweeney. All right, so I won't go through the little short summary. We're going to go through the whole summary. We'll just go ahead and go for that. So the episode starts off, as every episode does, with Andy and Opie walking to the fishing hole, but the real start is them driving to the fishing hole. They get out of the Mayberry squad car after they've driven up, and they're getting ready to get their fishing line and fishing rods and everything out because they're going to go fishing. They're going to have a good time. Well, as they're discussing their possibility of fishing, a fellow walks up and sits down behind them, and they start a conversation with him. He's like, how's it been? Is it fish biting? He said, no, not really. So he was an interested man. He said he was going to head over to the other side of the lake and fish over there because he had been talking to the fish and it just wasn't working. He said it didn't work. It didn't work out very good. Opie asked Andy if he had ever talked to fish, and Andy, or if people could really do that. And he said, well, if he says he can do it, I guess he can, but I've never met a fish I wanted to carry on a conversation. Anyway, the fellow heads over to the other side of the lake as Andy and Opie walk off into the distance, going to the fishing hole over there to go fishing. And as he walks by, as the stranger walks by the squad car, he looks inside and kind of notices there's a paper bag in there. He picks it up, he looks in it, he reaches in and takes out a sandwich and starts to eat it and walks off with the bag and the sandwiches. The next scene is Andy and Opie walking back into the courthouse, talking about the fish, and they weren't really biting very much because they weren't hungry, I guess. And Opie said, well, maybe they're the ones that ate our sandwiches. Andy just assumes they left them at home. He sits down, and Opie goes into the back room for a minute. Barney comes walking in with that same stranger, and Barney has arrested him for, I think this time it was loitering or vagrancy. I can't remember. At the beginning, he tells Andy he was down at the it wasn't the loading dock, but it was the freight yard. He was at the freight yard, and so he was down there. And then Andy and Opie start talking to the fella about did you get any better fish or anything like that? So Barney's completely confused as to how do you know this guy? And we met him when we went fishing today, is what he says. So basically Barney has arrested the fella for, vagrancy. And the gentleman tells his name is David Browne with an E. So the last name E has an E in it. The Browne is on that. It's not David with an E, it's Browne with an E. And he begins to demonstrate to Opie that, he doesn't like to carry much money with him or anything because, you can always find money. He borrows a coin from Andy, and he proceeds to do a magic trick for Opie where he makes it disappear and then reappear out of Opie's ear. And Opie is pretty fascinated with this. And honestly, so is Barney. So Barney, they even asked Barney, can you do it? Of course I can. I can do that. But he didn't want to do it. So basically they say, all right, well, you can leave, Mr. Browne. But he does say, as Mr. Browne is leaving, I think one disappearing act is enough. My coin, my quarter. He brings it back and hands it to Andy and leaves. And Barney's getting on to Andy. Why are you letting him leave? He's a vagrant. You're just letting him go. And Andy invites Opie to leave the courthouse at this point. go down. Here's a penny. Go down and get you some gum down in front of the store from the machine. Well, Opie says he'd rather listen. And Andy basically explains to him, no, you go on. And then he tells Barney, this is a good parent. He's telling Barney, you need to, I don't need to do this in front of Opie. I don't want him hearing about all this stuff. I want him to go on. So I didn't want to say that any badmouth him in front of Opie. So Barney's still very upset about the fact that Andy is not taking this completely serious and this guy is going to be trouble. So Barney says, I'm going to keep these baby blues on him. So we cut to the next scene and it shows Mr. Browne and Opie at the gumball machine outside what's probably Foley's Market. I assume it's Foley's Market. And they're getting gumball machines out of the gumball. And because Opie said, I only have one. He says, which kind would you want? Because there's gumballs in one and then similar things that dispense toys inside of a ball in another gumball machine. And he says, well, you don't need any money for this. You just got to know the special word. So the secret word is Tuscarora. So Mr. Dave, he uses a lockpick or something similar to that to jimmy the gumball machine so that it will dispense a gumball when he says Tuscarora, and he gives Opie a gumball. And then he asks Opie if he'd like another one after Opie starts sticking them in his face, and he ends up giving Opie, we don't know how many, but at least 2. Just the next scene, again, we're back in the courthouse. Barney's bringing Mr. Browne back into the courthouse. And Andy's like, what are you arresting him for now? And then this time he was arrested for loitering. And he said, well, and Mr. Browne goes, well, if I stand still, I'm loitering. If I'm moving around, I'm vagrant. So I can't win. So basically Andy says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a means of support because Barney says he has no means of support. How about, can you trim hedges? And he says, sure, I can do that. And so, okay, I'll give you a job trimming my hedges because Aunt B wants that. So then we cut to the scene where Mr. Browne and Opie are standing out in front of Andy's house looking at the hedges. And Opie is obviously taken with this gentleman and begins to mimic his movements. Everything he does, Opie does. And including sitting down on the porch, and they both lean back the same way. Every time Mr. Browne leans forward, Opie leans with him. And Mr. Browne begins to philosophize about, trimming hedges and how you really got to think about what style you want to do it. And do you want them in the Roman style? Do you want them, in the British court style? And then he also says, I think that's what I'll do when he makes his decision. I think I'll start tomorrow. He says, Opie's tomorrow? And Mr. Browne says, yeah, that's the best day to start any project is tomorrow. It's always best day to start. So the next morning, Opie's getting ready for school. So he's downstairs eating his breakfast, and Aunt B comes into the kitchen. Andy's already at the table with Opie. And she gets on to Opie for not straightening up his room. His room looks terrible. And Opie says, well, I'll do it tomorrow. And Andy says, you'll go up there right now and you do it. And Opie says, can't we have a conversation about this? That's what separates us from the apes, is discussion. And Andy says, well, Andy basically gets onto him pretty quick about, well, if you don't get up there and straighten up that room, it's going to be bad. So Opie leaves the room, and Aunt B's like, where is he picking this up? And he says, I don't know. But you can see on Andy's face, he suspects where that's coming from. So Opie heads out to go to school, and Mr. Browne standing out there looking at the shrubbery again. I guess he was thinking about cutting the shrubs that day because it's the next day. Opie's asked him, are you going to cut them? He says, well, I'm thinking about it, but where is the lake from here? And Opie says, oh, it's about a mile that way. He says, yeah, I thought so. I heard a fish jump. Opie says, "You can hear that from here?" He said, "Yeah, listen." And then Mr. Browne begins to tell Opie that it's a 13-inch long fish with one fin messed up and blue eye and a gray eye or something. I can't remember. But basically, Opie's like, "You can hear all that?" He said, yeah. He said, and fish are just waiting to be caught. That's, so it's just my duty to go and try to catch those fish. And he shows Opie his golly wobbler that he has made as a special fishing lure. And it can catch any fish. The fish just love it. And so basically he heads off to go fishing rather than doing the job he's supposed to do. Well, you can see Opie thinking about it, and he's got his books in his arms, and he's starts to walk towards school, but he stops and he's looking around, and he goes and hides his books in the shrubbery and then runs off. Well, Andy and Aunt Bee are still in the kitchen. Andy's drinking another cup of coffee, and Barney comes in and says, "Andy, I've got us another prisoner. This one I caught coming into the courthouse in the back to get a fishing pole." And Opie walks in. So Andy says, "Opie?" And Barney says, "Yeah, I got him for loitering, or for hooky, playing hooky. Not loitering, playing hooky." And Opie, "You've never done this before." Aunt Bee and Andy both saying that kind of information. And Opie's, not really saying anything, but Barney is. Barney's saying, "I know where you got these ideas. I know where they came from." And Andy, you can tell, is trying to encourage Barney to be quiet. But Opie just holds his head down because he's in trouble. But it cuts to another scene, and you see Barney in the courthouse getting reports on the phone about things being stolen, food being stolen, a pie. It was a chicken stolen. It was a pie has been stolen. I think an apple pie, if I'm not mistaken. And he is concerned about this crime wave going on. And Andy had brought some lunch in to eat from Aunt Bee. Well, Opie comes walking in as Barney walks out of the room to go get ready he's getting his gun so he can go out and try to find this person stealing food. Well, Opie comes in and said, Andy says, "You need something to eat?" He said, "No, I ate with Mr. Browne. We had fried chicken." "Oh, you did you?" And so he stops Barney, says, "Wait a minute, what else did you have?" "Apple pie." So it's the same things that have been reported stolen. And so Opie heads on out, and Andy's, Andy's pretty sure he knows who's taking the stuff at this point. But Opie's so happy about how good everything was. And he says, before he left, he did say, being a hobo seems a lot better than sheriffing. Andy said, "Well, you do eat better, evidently." So Opie left at that point, and then Barney and Andy were both talking about, we got to go out and get Mr. Browne. And Andy basically tells Barney, "You stay here. I'll go. I'm going. You stay here." So it cuts to a scene of Andy driving past the railroad tracks and to the little shack that Mr. Browne has set up a little camp area at. And Andy drives up in the squad car, gets out and sits down with Mr. Browne, and they have a conversation. And Mr. Browne's in the process of making a new golly wobbler because he gave Opie his original one. And Andy talks to Mr. Browne about what's happening. And he said, "Well, I heard Opie told me about the chicken." And he said, "Yeah, that was terrible. It got hit by a car and everything." And then Andy says, "Well, what hit the pie?" Well, Mr. Browne knows now that Andy is not gullible and realizes it. And Andy starts to tell him, "That's not even why I'm here. I'm really concerned about your influence on Opie." And Mr. Browne said, "Well, I'm really fond of him." He said, "Well, somehow, you've made him question what's right and what's wrong." And, he says, "Well, you're inviting me to leave." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, your troubles are over then. I'll leave." He said, No, my troubles are just beginning. Because, now Opie already has this in his mind, and I've got to work through it. And he says, "Well, how do you know," Mr. Browne says, "Well, how do you know my way it wouldn't be better for him than yours. He says, well, no, that's not how that works. You can't do that with a child. It'll pick the shiniest things with ribbons on it before they realize there's a hook in there. It's a great quote from the show. So he basically leaves, and Mr. Browne, you can see him thinking about what Andy has said. And it cuts to the next scene, and Barney again is walking into the courthouse with Andy sitting behind the desk and bringing Mr. Browne. Barney's carrying a purse, and he says, well, I caught him this time. He had stolen this purse, and by the way, it's Aunt Bee's purse, of course. And about then is when Opie also walks into the courtroom. He's standing behind them in the courthouse, and he's hearing all this. And he walks up to Mr. Browne and said, did you really steal Aunt Bee's purse, Mr. Browne? Well, Dave Browne doesn't answer the question. He just kind of looks down, has a sad look on his face. And Barney continues to harp about that he stole it. And Opie says, well, that's where Aunt Bee keeps the money to buy food and stuff, is in her purse. So Barney goes over and locks Mr. Browne up in the jail cell, and Opie proceeds to walk over toward the jail cell. And it's a great shot of Opie with Andy and Barney in the background. Opie's looking directly at Mr. Browne. He walks up, did you really take her purse, Mr. Browne? And he just turns his head and doesn't answer. So Opie starts to walk away, but he stops and takes the golly wobbler that Mr. Browne had given him out of his pocket, looks at it, walks back over to the jail cell, and hangs it on one of the bars. Mr. Browne, no words are spoken. Mr. Browne just looks at him, and Opie turns and walks out of the courthouse. Andy says, Barney, maybe you could go drive Opie home. Then Barney leaves, and Andy gets up and picks up the purse and walks over slowly to the jail cell and walks up to it and says, well, Mr. Browne, I happen to know that this purse is one that Aunt Bee threw in the trash the other day. Mr. Browne still doesn't say anything. But Andy hears a train whistle. He says, well, I heard the train. I guess you've got a train to catch. And Andy opens the door to let him out, and he says, I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate. And Mr. Browne stopped him. Said, well, like you said, Sheriff, I've got a train to catch. Andy stopped and smiled, and he walked out of the room to go catch his train. Then we hear the next scene is Barney standing reading a book on magic. And he's trying to figure out how to do the coin trick that Mr. Dave had done earlier. And he continues to try to do it, and he keeps dropping the coin on the ground over, he can't do it. He said, these things are hard. You got to learn this. It says right here, it takes years to learn the manual dexterity to be able to do a trick like this. And so he tries it again, and he drops it onto the desk there with Andy, and he can't do it. Well, Opie comes walking and says, hey, Pa, look, here's Mr. Dave showed me this. And so basically Opie does the coin trick right there in front of Andy and Barney. And Andy's like, Barney, you can do that trick, can't you? Why don't you go ahead and do it? I don't want to. And he gets mad and actually picks up the book and throws it in the trash, storms out of the courthouse, and we fade to black. And that is the end of the story, I guess. So now you know the rest of the story, I guess I could say. So that's the end of our information there about the rundown of that particular episode. So hopefully you like that. Now we have got odd facts known by few. All right. So one of our trivia questions, as I mentioned earlier, was about the Beverly Hillbillies and when did it start? Well, the year following this particular episode, Buddy Ebsen, who played Dave Browne, would go on to star as a year later as Jed Clampett in the Beverly Hillbillies. I'm sure none of you knew that. But Beverly Hillbillies is Jed Clampett. And it was a character that really wasn't far removed from Dave Browne. So there's several other odd facts that we've got here to talk about. Like when Opie is outside of the Foley's Market at the gumball machines, when Mr. Browne takes the first gumball and offers it to Opie, he's got it cupped in his hand. Well, we never see Opie take that gumball. But Opie says, would you like another? And Opie says, yeah. And then Mr. Browne does the gimmick again and gets another gumball. And Opie takes it from Mr. Dave, but he already had one in his mouth. So he had somewhere between those two shots, he had taken it and put it in his mouth. He has a big wad of gum. I don't know how many he actually got, but he got several in there. So I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to mention that the gumball machines they're probably Acorn and Oak is the brand name of those gumball machines. And they can't dispense a gumball without you turning the handle. So that's a little error in this, because, he does do from the back to make it come out, but you would still have to turn the handle like there was a penny in it, right? Because that mechanism would cause that. So when you do it, you have to turn the handle. The gumball machines, they use a rotating plate to capture the piece of gum and then turn it and drop it into the bottom portion. And although Mr. Browne is shown using the wire or lockpick or whatever he has to jimmy the machine, it's not possible to do, as the machines are sealed and there's nothing back there for you to actually do this. So they didn't give away anything. There's not really a way to do this. So don't be going and trying to steal bubble gum out of a machine doing the Tuscarora trick that Mr. Browne does. At the end of the episode, when Andy's letting Mr. Browne go, after he, had said he had stolen the purse, or when they had said he had stolen the purse. So Andy takes the key off of between the two jail cells. He sticks it in the door, but he never actually turns it. If you watch that episode, he doesn't actually turn it. He just sticks it in the key lock. Now, it could be he tried to turn it and didn't turn, so then he just pulled the door open. That would kind of indicate the doors in real life didn't actually latch. So every time Barney locked himself into the jail cell, maybe they weren't actually latching. I don't know. But he didn't actually have to turn the key to let him out of the jail cell. In several shots during the episode, we can see outside the door the squad car. Outside of the jail, outside of the courthouse, you can see the squad car sitting out there. And that is one of those flat cutout Mayberry patrol cars that you can see outside the door. And so you don't actually see the real jail. It's not really the squad car out there. It's those flat versions of the squad car outside the door of the courthouse. So as you watch that episode, watch it closely, and you'll notice that the Mayberry patrol car that's out there is not the real squad car. That's not it. All right. Okay. So watch for that. The scenes inside the courthouse is when you'll see that. So when they're inside is when you'll see it. In one scene, Opie is seen looking down after hearing that Mr. Browne stole Aunt Bee's purse, which happens several times during that scene. So you really have to watch for this. The bottom of the backdrop can be seen outside the courthouse door at that point. So you can definitely see that outside. If you look, you can see outside the door. You see the white part that you'll see if you really look. If you're watching the episode, you're seeing it here. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, you'll see this. You can see the doors of the squad car end, and you can see the actual bottom of that cutout backdrop. You can see it. You can see it out there. So watch for that as well. Let's see. When Opie asked Mr. Browne if he really stole the purse, Mr. Browne is standing in the jail, and the camera comes in close on Opie as he walks toward the door. So as he's walking toward the door, Opie walks a few steps, and then this is after he's already been standing there, and he starts to walk away, and then goes back to put the golly wobbler on the door. As he turns around and he hangs the fishing lure on the jail door, the exact same close-up shot is used a second time. So they do the same close-up shot twice, according to them. So you have this is, I'm going to show you in the pictures. There's this shot and this, or maybe these two. Or yeah, it's basically the same shot. There's no way they shot this at two different places. I'm going back and forth. This is from two different portions of the show. They just reused the same shot. So if you watch the episode, you'll see it. Before he goes over to the jail cell, they have the close-up of him. You know, he's looking over there. And then after he goes over, it's the same one. It's basically the same one. There's like, it's the same shot. They used it again rather than reshoot it, because it would have been the same camera setup, the same thing. Anyway, all right. So probably more than you want to know, but watch for that when you're watching the episode. When Andy and Dave are talking in the sheriff's office near the end of the show, a train whistle is heard. So I mentioned that is at the end there where Andy's letting him go. He says, "You'll miss your train." So when that happens, the thing there is that at that point in the United States, by 1960, so a couple of years before that, steam locomotives have been replaced by diesel engines, which had horns instead of whistles. So the sound they heard would have been a horn, not a whistle, but they did say that the train was stopping to fill up with water. So the show was set in the 1960s, so it was 61. So maybe there was still a steam engine going through Mayberry, but that's just an odd fact known by few for you. Buddy Ebsen, the actor who has played Mr. Browne, this is a little more information about him. He was originally cast as the Tin Man in the 1939 Wizard of Oz movie, but he was hospitalized as a result of inhaling the aluminum powder that was used as part of the makeup to make him look like the Tin Man. One chorus of "We're Off to See the Wizard" in the movie and the soundtrack still retain Buddy Ebsen's voice as the Tin Man. It was recorded before he was forced to leave the production of The Wizard of Oz. Because of the prolonged hospitalization, he was replaced by Jack Haley, whose reformulated makeup used pre-mixed aluminum dust. So Buddy Ebsen's scenes were all reshot using the new actor, and footage of Ebsen as the Tin Man does still exist, though, and was included as an extra in the United States 50th anniversary video release of The Wizard of Oz. In the 1930s, Disney animators filmed Buddy Ebsen dancing in front of a grid to choreograph Mickey Mouse's dance steps for the Silly Symphonies cartoon. So we have Buddy Ebsen as the live action model for Mickey Mouse, at least him dancing. And we have Margaret Carey as a live action model for Tinkerbell. You know, Margaret Carey from, the Scobys, Mrs. Scobie. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. I wanted to make sure you knew about it. Let's see here. The character Dave Browne was to tap into the romanticized image of hobos that were prevalent in the mid 1900s in America. It was a nod to the Great Depression era, then when transient wanderers were very common. So you have to remember, and I've said this before, this is not in my notes, but Andy based Mayberry. It was set in the 60s, but it was really based on when Andy was a little boy, Opie's size. So that's back when it would have been some of these situations still going on. So that's kind of the feel it had, and that nostalgia we had. So even in the 60s, when the show was originally on, there was a nostalgic feeling that the Andy Griffith Show brought towards people because it was kind of set in that kind of a time frame. All right, so I got one little less tidbit for you, and I think I'm going to try, let's see here if I can do this, to play some audio for you that was from the show, because this was a very moving, in my opinion, portion of the episode. Now, this is the quote I want to play. So let's just play this quote and listen to this as we go.
Who's to say that the boy would be happier your way or mine? Why not let him decide?
No, I'm afraid it don't work that way. You can't let a young'un decide for himself. He'll grab at the first flashy thing with shiny ribbons on it. Then when he finds out there's a hook in it, it's too late. The wrong ideas come packaged with so much glitter, it's hard to convince them that other things might be better in the long run. And all a parent can do is say, wait, trust me, and try to keep temptation away.
Boy, tell you what, is that not a great bit of parenting advice? I tell you, I don't care what time frame we're talking about, 1960s or the 2020s. That is a great piece of parenting advice, and maybe it's something we can all remember. Well, folks, that is basically all I have for that. So now let's head over and get some of our trivia answers. We already ran through them, so let's do our trivia answers. So let's get our trivia music back. Let's head over to the answers for the Mayberry Trivia Quiz. Are you ready? So let's go back to question number one. Question number one, it says we'll start off easy. So let's start off easy. In which familiar face plays the hobo? Well, you ought to know that by now. Buddy Ebsen. It was Buddy Ebsen that played the hobo. What does his character steal out of the patrol car, the Mayberry patrol car? Out of the patrol car, he takes a sandwich. Now, we don't know what else was in that. We don't know what else was in the bag, but he definitely takes a sandwich. So that's the one we see him eating. What was his name? What was the character's name? Well, I told you that answer earlier. It was Dave Browne. Dave Browne was his name. David Browne. What is the magic word that the hobo uses? Tuscarora. That's what it is. Yep. That is it. All right. Number 5. Andy gives the man work doing what? It was trimming the hedges. Did he ever trim the hedges? I don't think he ever did. Number 6. According to Opie's new friend, Mr. Browne, what separates us from the apes? What separates us from the apes? That one was a little harder. But the answer is talking, discussion. All right, number 7. The man also philosophizes regarding the days of the week. Which day is best? Which day of the week is the best? Which one is it? It's tomorrow. It's always best to do it tomorrow. Opie gets brought in on what kind of charges? Well, he was playing hooky. We got that one. Number 9. Opie's friend claims to have invented a new kind of fishing lure. By the way, I like the answers that they made up. A flash dangle, a hook-a-majig, but the answer is a gollywoggle. A gollywoggle. All right. I thought it was gollywobbler, but I don't know. Gollywoggle. Either way, that's it. All right, number 10. The episode ends with Barney practicing what kind of hobby? It was magic. It was magic. All right, well, so how did you do with all those answers? Did you get them? Did you do all right? Yeah, so there will be a link in our show notes to another article that MeTV has. I would encourage you to go and check out. It's called Don Knotts Lived the Story, at the heart of Opie's Hobo Friend. Talks about his mom running a boarding house when he was growing up, and they had all kinds of people that just passed through, and so he had experienced some of the things that we saw Opie going through. So I'll put a link in our show notes for that, so go and check out the show notes at twochairsnowaiting.com for this episode, and you'll see it's episode number 834, and you can go to the link there. You can just go and search for it, but I figure you'll forget. I would, but there will be a link in our show notes for that, so go and check that out if you would like to learn even more about this particular episode. Oh man. So yeah, we hope you enjoyed all this. I think that is all I was going to tell you guys about tonight. I don't see anything else in my notes. So folks, I want to thank you for being here with me for the podcast. It's always great to have you here with me and to be able to talk about the Andy Griffith Show. I'd love to hear what you think. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415. You can email me at floyd@imayberry.com, or just drop by twochairsnowaiting.com, and there's lots of ways to leave information to me there. Again, I'd love to hear your voice. I'd like to hear if you went to Granville, Tennessee this past week. We were in Granville, Tennessee, had a great time at Tennessee's Mayberry town for the Mayberry I Love Lucy Festival. Definitely encourage you to try to make plans to be there next year. Folks, until next time, have a great Mayberry week, and we'll see you next time right here on Two Chairs.